We're live on Spiritual Psychics TV with Paul Bannister and his guests for Spiritual Talk.
Hello, everybody. Really good to have you here. You may notice that the amazing Paul Bannister looks slightly different this evening. And as Jordan said in the show previously, which was amazing, if you've just come straight from that, made yourself a quick cup of tea, eaten some tea, and then come and watch this show, the very lovely Paul can't be with us this evening. So I've been given the absolute honour of interviewing our guest, who's one of our very own SP TV family. So I'm really, really, really pleased to be able to stand. Many of you that are going to be watching this evening, if you're new to, if I'm new to kind of talking to you, it would be really good if you could say where you're from. And if you could say where you're from, if you could say hello, if you could say hello to your friends in the chat. And please keep your questions coming, because we're going to have the amazing David Hale, who I know needs no introduction. But I am going to give him a really nice introduction, because you know him from his own show that he does on SPTV, which is amazing readings. So I'm going to invite in my amazing guest this evening, the lovely David Hale. Come on in, David.
Hello, Ashley.
This is really good. Do you know how brave you are to be interviewed on your own channel with people that know you as the amazing reader and medium, and you don't know what I'm going to ask you this evening?
I've got no idea. No idea.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be super fun. I already know it's going to be fun. So shall we say some hellos? This is going to be really nice. And you'll be able to point out who are your regular people, who are the people that tune in to see you. So first and foremost, we must say hello to the lovely Terry on YouTube. Hello, Terry.
Hello, Terry.
Really good to have you with us. Hope you're doing well. Oh, it's always lovely to have you with us. Hello to Patricia, also on YouTube. Oh gosh, look at those sun lounges on your profile picture. That looks nice. We need a bit of that. Hello, Patricia.
Natalie Bentley. Hello, good evening to you, watching on Facebook. There's Madeline. Madeline is one of my loyal followers. I do some work with Madeline as well. Thanks for joining, Madeline, watching on Facebook there.
Oh, good to meet you, Madeline. Lovely. Hello to Brenda with your beautiful sunflowers, watching us on Facebook. It's really nice to have you with us, Brenda. Thanks for coming along.
MJ Reynolds, watching from Virginia, USA. Well, welcome, MJ, watching on Facebook there.
Oh, lovely. Good to have you with us, MJ. Hello to Tracy. Really good to have you with us. Tracy Foster on Facebook. Really good to have you with us. Please do make sure that you say hello to your friends in the chat.
Yeah. Lovely Rebecca Whelan, another one of my my loyal followers and watchers there. Hello, Rebecca. Hope you're well, my love.
Oh, Rebecca, you have to let me know how we're doing. Hello, Neil.
Neil
It's really
Payne.
good to have you with us. Look at Neil. Oh, and lovely Karen in your profile picture too. Oh, Neil. I've just been given a message hot in my ear, Neil. You know how this works. To be at the train station at 12. It sounds very cryptic from Richard. You know what this means, okay? Don't know what it means. Put a code back in the chat if you understand. Put a code in the chat.
Serena Galvin watching on YouTube. Welcome, Serena.
Good.
Thanks for joining.
Hello, Julie from Dorset.
Julie, again, another one that she's been following me for a long time, Julie. And she came to see me in Aylesbury a while ago, actually, for some healing. So thanks for joining, Julie.
Really good to have you with us. Hello to Judith. Really lovely to have you with us on Facebook.
Tracy McIntosh, hello to you as well, watching on Facebook.
Lovely Sarah, who's on YouTube. Lovely little community over on YouTube.
Lisa Paris as well, and Melvine Peters, both watching on Facebook. Welcome, welcome.
Lovely. And Janet on Facebook. Hi to you, Janet. If you're new here, please put in the chat and you'll be welcomed by all of the community watching.
And last one, Jacqueline Mercer watching on Facebook as well. Hello, Jacqueline. Thanks for joining.
Oh, please do keep putting your name and where you're from in the chat. Please do keep doing it. And for all of our regular people, I know you do this amazingly because I do it myself. When I'm watching when I'm doing bits and pieces around the house and I'm watching other people's shows, if I see there is somebody who puts, I'm new, I'll always welcome them and say hello, because it feels very much like we're kind of, if someone finds us and stumbles across us on the internet, however they do that, they're meant to find us. I absolutely believe that. And so it's nice to welcome them in and say hello and kind of encourage them to stick around and listen to some amazing mediums and speakers. So David, and this is going to be really interesting for you, because you're used to kind of like doing a one-man band, aren't you?
Yes.
And like doing all the things and reading the comments and listening to Richard and interacting. But it's a real pleasure for me to interview you, because I know that you do an awful lot of stuff. And for you, your spiritual journey, I have been doing a little bit of research about you this
Oh,
afternoon.
you have? Oh,
I have. Yeah. So, I must just say hello to Suzanne from Egypt. Hello. Really good to have you with us. Amazing, amazing. Beautiful. I've been doing a bit of research about you, and I know that your spiritual journey has been a really, really, really interesting one. And so I just wondered if you might be able to speak a little bit about where you are at the moment. I know people tend to talk a lot about their journey and where they've come from and how they came into spirituality and their first spiritual experience. But I'd like to talk about, where you are right now, and some of the things that Spirit are inspiring you, that you need to look forward to in your future, and kind of the direction that your mediumship is taking in your spirit work, because I think that's really exciting.
yeah, thank you. So where I am now, I'm still getting used to platform work, to be really honest. It took me until I got into about my 6th year of development to take my first physical feet onto the platform. And when I started developing, I wasn't necessarily developing to be a platform medium. It was just to develop the mediumship. So I never in my head was thinking, oh, I must be on that stage one day, because actually the thought of it just gave me hives. Do you know what I mean? It's a nerve-wracking thing. And so I've been doing online platform for about 3 years, I'd say, and started doing physical, like on the physical platform, since April last year. And I feel I'm in that part of my development at the minute. So that's where I'm really focused on, because I'm always conscious that I want to get, how do I say it? Do I say better? I want to get better. I want to get more accomplished. I want to improve this, improve that. Whether it should do or not, I don't know. But in my mind, it's like, this is not just it. There is more to come from this. And so that's where my focus is. And it's just listening to Spirit pushing me in that direction. And my feeling is, from what they're telling me, is just to keep doing it, is to keep progressing, keep developing, keep trying out, new things and meeting the people you need to meet. So that's kind of where I am. I tend not to look too far ahead. I just tend to take it as it comes, because I'm also very aware that I don't take what I do for granted. So I know there could be a point where I get on a platform and I go, oh, nothing's coming in. And so in my mind, I'm like, right, I must prepare for that situation by, I guess, continuing to develop and experience different situations and things. So I feel that's where it is at the minute. I'm doing a lot of churches at the moment, but I've started to be invited to do other venues outside of churches. So although I will still do them, I think another part of the development, I guess, is to take a step outside of that and do venues which are not necessarily filled with believers. Because I think when you go to a spiritualist church, people tend to be there because they're there for the service. They're there to sit in that energy, and they'll have that same mindset. Where you might do venues like a village hall or a pub or whatever else, where you'll have people that have been dragged there by their other halves. Do you know what's this all about? And that's another situation to get to grips with and to learn from, because they're going to be different people to handle, I guess, if you want to put it that way. Do you know, when I sat there with arms crossed and looking at you like, who are you, kind of thing. So all of that is still development to me, because it makes me learn how to deal with that person, how to cope with that kind of skepticism, if you like. So I think that's what I guess the next phase probably is doing more of those events outside of the churches.
Exciting. Lots look forward to. And it's worth saying, actually, you already know this, fans of David will already know this, but on his website there is an events calendar with all of the amazing stuff you've got coming up as well. Online services, like this Sunday you've got an online service that's on your website, and then your physical services for all of the churches and centres that you serve. So I think that's really interesting what you said. And I also found your podcast.
Oh, you did?
I've been having a proper good day, David. I really enjoyed your podcast. I really enjoy it. And I think because it's not just about, I say just like that, that's not how I mean it, but it's not only about your spiritual journey, is you also ask some really interesting questions. And you ask some really probing questions. And I really like what you said, actually. It's not your job to prove anything. It's your job to deliver the mediumship. And I like that you're a very feet on the ground medium. That really does appeal to me. But how do you deal with people who are not skeptic, but maybe they've had bad experiences with mediums in the past? How do you kind of get over that? Because you almost have that hurdle as well. If they've seen maybe not so great mediums in the past, or had a bad experience on as a platform medium, but like you say, in that private sitting environment where they aren't coming to church, they're probably not spiritualists, but they've come to you for a reading.
I mean, I always start my read. I don't go straight in with a reading. I try to put my clients or sitters, whatever you want to call them, at ease. So I always explain what my process is. And I make it clear that, I do ask them as well, have you ever seen a medium before? Just so I've got in my head what their experience is, because some people come to me fresh and they've never been to see a medium or psychic ever. So that gives me the thought of, okay, I need to be aware of how I deliver this then, because they're not necessarily aware of how it works. So I always explain my process. And even when people come and they've had a bad experience, it's just putting their mind at ease. And I do explain to them that, look, I'm not here to deliver anything negative. I always work with the ethos of leaving you feeling better than when I first found you. And that's the point of the readings. So I try and put their mind at ease in that sense. And just, I guess I try to use my humor, not in a non-relevant way, because some people can just try to be funny for the sake of being funny. But for me, it's not. I always say, people know me for how I work, and that I always bring my humor in, because I say to people, it's not that serious. I know we're connecting with your loved one, so that is the serious part, of course, but Spirit don't want us to be that serious. They want us to be a bit lighthearted. So through that kind of humor and levity and the way I deliver, I guess, is it puts people at ease. So they know that there's nothing to worry about. They know they're not going to get anything negative from me, anything like that. And, I have had cases where people have come to me, having had a reading from someone else, distraught or concerned, or distress is probably a better word, because of what another medium has said to them, which in my mind is not true. But in that case, I just have to reassure them that that's not how I see it. I can't change what that person said, but this is my viewpoint on it from my experience. And sometimes, hopefully, it does make them go, okay, and it just releases them. So that's kind of how I would, how I kind of, deal with those people. Because again, it should always be an uplifting thing from my point of view, and nothing negative. So that's how I try to combat that, I guess.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you. Really interesting. And as you were talking, I was kind of feeling the healing coming in around that as well. Because I know you're a healer, but mediumship is healing.
Absolutely.
And sometimes we've got to do a little bit of healing to undo some things which have already happened before we actually then get to the healing that's coming in from the spirit world in terms of the message they could give their loved one. That's lovely. Really lovely message from Julie. She's definitely in your fan club. When she saw you in Bognor with Bill Hughes, I had my friend with me who was a non-believer, and he left in a different frame of mind. So
fab.
Amazing. Giving that
Thanks, Julie.
assurance from spirit, one person at a time. I absolutely love that. And Jacqueline saying, when was it that you knew you had your ability to work with spirit? And I know you've answered this question a lot, about your kind of upbringing and the faith that you were kind of born and brought up into, and then taking a break and then finding spirituality. But did you want to just talk about when it was you delivered your first communication from spirit, when you thought, I can do this?
It was 2017. So it's later into my life, I guess, if you can look at it that way. I was 34 at the time. So to me, that's a bit later. I think you hear a lot of people that have experiences since they were 4 and I didn't. So it's 2017 when I joined a development group, a development circle in the Spiritualist Church. And it's really from there. And I think I joined them. I started my own development in the May or June of that year. And then I found a Spiritualist Church that I joined, I think was in the September or the August or September. And I still didn't know if I could. It's kind of because I didn't grow up around it. You kind of think, okay, is it a bit mad, or am I making it up, or is it a fluke? And it wasn't until I did my first reading outside of the church, outside the circle, not paid or anything. It was just I thought I want to practice on someone else that I don't know. And that was on the 31st of October 2017. So that was a Halloween day.
Wow.
And it was that reading that I left. I felt a little bit freaked out, I've got to say. But it kind of showed me that, okay, I've done something. I don't necessarily know what I did, but
Something's happened.
but the person could take what I said and they left crying, which that part freaked me out a little bit. Because I touched on something that they were waiting to hear. So it was that point that I thought, okay. So it wasn't long into my development, actually, that I realized very quickly that something was happening, shall we say.
Amazing. I love, really, really lovely. And I love that you remember the date. And,
Yeah.
you know, I say this to my circle all the time, whatever happens, go home and write it down. And especially the first time as a complete beginner, the first time you get something that someone goes, yeah, I can take that. Write it down, because you know, in the years to come, God willing, when you're working, you need to remember these little nuggets because it's so profound.
Yeah.
Do you remember your most profound message, the one that kind of, because we all have connections that we make that really touch us and kind of stay with us?
Yeah.
Do you mind, obviously, respecting the boundaries of it, kind of talking to that? Is there one that you particularly remember that really touched you?
Oh, well, one that's just dropped in my head. So this is coming from somewhere. And as mediums, we don't remember our readings, right? We might remember certain parts of things, but it was a private reading that I was doing. And before I actually pressed to go live, I'd had the spirit person step forward. And I thought, okay, this is for this lady that I've got to read for, and I just knew it because spirit do that with me. They'll kind of give me something before I actually go live, so to speak. And I remember it was a young lad, and I remember kept saying in my head, "It was an accident. It was an accident. It was an accident." I thought, okay, but I had no other context around it, and I felt like I fell. It was an accident, and he fell. So I went live with a lady and I was bringing him through, and it turned out to be her son. And I said to her, look, all I can say to you at this particular minute, I said, I keep hearing it's an accident and I fell. And she put a hand over her mouth and she burst out crying. And so she said, so we didn't commit suicide then? Because she had the thought that he was on holiday basically in an apartment, and they were partying or whatever, and he had gone over the balcony and sadly lost his life. And she never knew what the real story was. She was under the impression that he just decided, for whatever reason, it was not suicidal, he was not depressed, that he would just throw himself over a balcony. And I said, all I can say to you very clearly, my darling, is he's telling me it was an accident. And just that one bit out the whole reading, that's all she needed to hear, because she could then rest and know that he wasn't in any kind of trauma that took him to the point of having to do that. It was purely an accident. And for whatever reason, that example just dropped in my head. But it was that. It's then you can see from those kind of things, that are those examples, that you realize why you do it and what impacts that you can have on another person. And I saw it in just that split second by telling her that. So yeah, that was a powerful moment.
Really powerful. And I know you don't take this lightly. I know that
absolutely.
you absolutely love what it is that you do and the process. And I know that you're huge on being the best that you can possibly be and the mechanics of your mediumship and constantly working on it.
Yeah.
So huge respect to that. What an amazing message of giving that lady some hope and some closure and some comfort and some healing and kind of just, oh, amazing. Transformational stuff, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So how is your personal faith changed then over doing this work? I mean, has it given you a completely different insight since you've been developing, you know, the things that drop into your mind from spirit and the stories that you've heard and messages that you've passed? How's your faith kind of changed and evolved on a personal level since you've been working and developing and kind of had your awakening?
You know, it's really, you see the world differently. And I did write this in my book that when I first started developing, I think I meditated every day for about 4 months straight. And that's not exaggerating.
Wow.
Because I thought that's what you had to do to connect to spirit, right? I didn't know any better. And also because when I get hold of something, I want to do it right. And I want to do it. I know sometimes you first start meditating, your mind starts, after 2 minutes, your mind starts wandering to your shopping list and everything else you've got to do. And I really wanted to get rid of that and to really be disciplined in it. And because I did that, I started to feel different within myself. I was very much at that point of development, really into my fitness and into the gym. And even through meditation, it kind of opened my eyes to, you don't have to do that. It's not necessarily all about the aesthetics. And it really put my mind at ease. I think my mind opened up to really what's going on in the world. You know, we can be, masked by certain things and people don't show them their real selves. I was starting to see through that as well. And I feel like I knew that I wasn't alone. Because at the time I was single. I was living in London in a shared flat with two guys I hadn't met before. And I feel like knowing that spirit was there, that I thought, I can do this. Because I know I'm not by myself. I know I've got a team of people, whether I can see them or not. I know I've got them there, backing me up. And I think by having my eyes open to certain things and understanding where the spirit world are, my fear of death completely dissipated. And I knew that although my loved ones had left us physically, I knew they were still hanging around. And for whatever reason, that gave me comfort as well, especially knowing that most of them are Irish Catholics. So when they were living, they didn't believe in this whatsoever. But since they went and haven't had messages myself from other mediums, I know they've changed their minds. So I know that, if anyone else's loved one was a Catholic or even a skeptic, they can still show up because they still change their mind while they're over there. So it's taught me many different things. And one thing's also taught me is how I should really listen to myself, because a lot of things I went through in the young adulthood, I look back now and go, if I just listened to that gut instinct or to what my body was feeling about a certain personal situation, I wouldn't have gone through it. So it taught me those kind of lessons, but I don't ever obviously regret them, because again, I look back and go, well, actually, now looking at it, that taught me how psychic I am, or how intuitive I am. So I can't regret it, because it actually still taught me a lesson.
Yeah.
So it just really opens your mind up to, I'm just a bit more relaxed with life, I guess. And just, that's why I kind of take the day one step at a time, and I just feel at ease while doing it, because I know there's a purpose for it. I feel that's another thing I've learned as well, is that I tend to live my life like this anyway, but that I believe everything happens for a reason, and everything happens when it's supposed to happen in its time. And I've come to terms with the fact that there's some things we're not meant to have, but there's also some things that we are, or some paths that we are meant to tread. And so my mind's really been opened up to that since doing this work as well. So
it's fascinating. And I know you're big into your ancestry, and I know that. And you love tracking it all down. And as soon as I heard that, I was like, oh, this is really interesting, because have you managed to find anyone who was mediumistic, even though I know you've got a Catholic background, so it probably wasn't quite overt, but is there anyone there who was kind of mediumistic, or are you kind of tracing, or have they come through and spoken to you kind of off the
No,
chart,
so
off the paper?
no, I just said I love my ancestry, and I started it 2008 before I was doing this work, just because I'm a bit nosy, and I like to know where I come from, right? Because you hear stories and like down the grapevine and Chinese whispers that you come from this, you come from that, you find out almost no, I didn't. So no, I've been looking for that for a long time, and I cannot. I've got maybe nearly 2,000 people in my family tree that I've searched.
Oh, wow.
And none of them are, from what I can find, were psychics or mediums at all. But it was a couple of years ago that a lovely medium in the States called Grace Grilla, I was on her show when I first started, actually. She, out the blue, had said, no, your ability comes from a lady called Mags or Mag. And that's my great aunt Mag. And she's in spirit. And I was very close to her, and she was a big, although she was a great aunt, she was a big part of my growing up, my cousins growing up, and she never had a bad word to say about anybody. And my mum had told me, when I first started developing, that many years ago, she had said something to my mum. It was almost like something prophetic, and it is very true. Now I won't reveal what it is; it's a personal family thing, but. She had said something, and my mum said that, she says, I'll never forget that. She always said this thing, and she is very correct. And actually, when I look back at it, my mum's very intuitive. Now, she's not necessarily a psychic or medium, but she's always had great intuition. And actually, as have many of the females on that side of the family. But no one ever did anything like that, because it was a very Catholic family, so none of that was touched. But I do believe that the women were very intuitive, very insightful, but not necessarily in your quote unquote psychic way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Really interesting. And it only came because as soon as I kind of heard that you were into your ancestry, and I was like, it's really interesting, because I think there's a lot of people who are mediumistic, who are sensitive, who are healers primarily, are drawn to looking at their ancestry because of our family stories, and kind of unpicking the stories, and then doing the healing work for our own relatives and our own families, and being those change makers. Call it ancestral healing, whatever you want to label, you want to give it, but actually just shining a little bit of a light and sending some love there. But also because for so many people who are mediumistic, their family and friends and loved ones are actually some of the first people that kind of come through and are almost like guardians and supporters and cheerleaders from the spirit world on the stage when you get up to work. That's interesting. And that links to Amanda's question. I was wondering, David, if your own relatives come through to you, which you've answered beautifully. They do.
They do. And I'm terrible with them because I test them. Only because I'm very conscious of what we do, and I'm very conscious that I want it to be authentic and to be real. And obviously I'd love to have my constant contact with my own loved ones. So when they do appear, I do kind of question them. I sort of just to say, I do believe you, but just in case. And they do give me I do, like my nan, for example, she's done it before, and I've said, right, Nan, if this is you, tell me things I wouldn't know. And she has done.
Wow.
And I've had to go to my mum and say, Mum, what? And she probably looks at my text messages and go, what's he talking about now? But I say, Nan's given me these things. Do you have any clue what they are? And she'll come back and say, yeah. And she'll tell me what the meanings of them are. So I go, oh, sorry, Nan, I know you're there now. I don't do it so much anymore because now I trust it, and I know when they're coming close. But yeah, they don't come through to me all the time. To be honest, they're very respectful of my space, but I know when they're coming in.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got loads and loads of questions coming in, and unsurprisingly, they want to know what the secret sauce is, David. They want to know what it is. What could you describe probably not your process, because I know there's probably loads of aspects to it, but in basic terms, the mechanics of how your mediumship works. Are you clairvoyant, clairsentient? Does it change? Is it a mix? And kind of how does it come through to us?
Yeah, so for me, it's a mix. And when I saying that though, when I first started, because I'm quite a visual person by nature, I learn by watching, by read, whatever, and get my hands dirty myself. So when I first started, I was very clairvoyant. So I would see those images, those symbols, those things in the mind. But as I started developing, I noticed that my clairaudience started to kick into gear as well, and that come through a little bit of a shocking way actually. But then also my clairsentience started to catch up with that. So I use them all in tandem, and I wouldn't say one is stronger than the other because sometimes I just can't tell. It just comes as it comes, and obviously when we're doing it, when I'm on a platform, we ain't got time to think about how's that come in. We just got to say what comes in. And then the clairsentience has turned a little bit more physical, I guess. So I don't just sense the pain, I feel the pain, or I feel the poke or the prod. That's not for everybody, obviously, because some people wouldn't like that, but spirit know how they want to work with us, how we're going to pick up the information. And so yeah, so I always give my speech at the beginning of a dem. I say, look, spirit will use me as however they want to use me. I don't restrict myself by saying, oh, I'm only clairvoyant. No, I'm all of them. So if spirit want to say something to me, they will. If they want to show it to me instead, they'll show it to me. If they want to get it through to me in a feeling kind of way, then that's how they're going to do it. And as I've developed more, spirit work with me pretty much literally. So I made a joke the other night. I said, look, spirit work with me literally. So whatever comes in my head comes out my mouth. So if they give me a can of beans, you're getting a can of beans. I don't need to know why they're giving it to me or why I'm giving it to you, but that's what they're showing me. So I'm going to give that to you. And that's very much my process, is working honestly and just saying, look, this is what I'm hearing, seeing and feeling. And it's not up to me to interpret everything because I'm not meant to know everything. I always say, look, I'm just a puppet, right? They tell me what to say, my lips move, and that's it. I'm just passing on that information. And for me, that just brings more purity to it and more authenticity to it because I'm not putting my meaning on it. I'm just allowing it to come out as it comes out in whatever way they want to put it through to me. So yeah, that's my process.
Thank you, David. Fantastic questions, Cindy. Thank you so much. Please do keep your questions through. I'm sure if we don't get through them all, we'll have a look at them afterwards. So you gave us a little bit of a hint there. So how did your clairaudience, are you able to say? How did your clairaudience start for you?
I will. It's slightly sensitive. So
okay. Are you able to?
I think I can. I think people are grown up enough to understand it. Okay. Now, it was at a time when I had decided to, I think it was just like 6-7 months after joining the circle, I decided to bite the bullet and create a little chat group on my personal Facebook page, just before I had my business page. Because for me, I wanted to stretch myself. I want to stretch the ability because obviously when you're in a development circle with the same people week in, week out, in my mind, I'm a bit like, well, I know that now.
Yes.
And so I didn't feel like I was being, I don't know, my ability wasn't being utilized enough. That's just in my head, right? So I created a little chat group. And there's no video, it was purely chat, right? Text message on Facebook. And I was getting to meditation and all of a sudden in my head, I heard he raped me.
Oh, okay.
And I shut up and I was like, what? I didn't know I was clairaudient. I heard that in my head. And so as sensitive as I could, I'd put it into the chat group. We're all live. And I saw her, I'd seen her, I described her, and it did turn out that that's unfortunately another family member had been abusing her for a number of years until she couldn't take it anymore and she passed. And that's the thing that got me straight away, and obviously it shocked me. But the peace it gave that relative, because towards the end of the evening, in my head, I just saw this woman in spirit put her arms out like an angel and ascend.
Oh.
She just wanted to tell her relative because I saw prison bars as well, and I saw this man. I said, "He's in prison, isn't he?" And she went, "Yeah." So, well, she knows about it. So she's come back to you to say, "I can rest because I know he's got his justice, and I can now ascend because I've told you now that I'm okay, and my mental state is clear. So whatever he did to me don't matter because I'm in a good place now." And that's that very first read. I will never forget it. The very first reading that happened when my clever, and from that point, I started to pay attention to what I was receiving in another way.
David, my heart is going as you're giving. I can feel the release that comes from that. And this is why we do what we do. This is just huge. Oh my goodness, amazing, amazing, amazing story. And for anyone that is watching, that has had feelings come up from that, then please do what you need to do to take care of yourself. And hopefully you can take some comfort from what David has just said, that actually this is about the power of that universal love and truth that comes from the spirit world, who wants to see things done correctly and support us and know that they are with us. And supporting us and understand our struggles. Amazing, amazing, life-changing moment. The reaction is just literally blown up the chat with everybody just loving it and having the same reaction that I'm having to your wonderful story. Wonderful. Thank you. My goodness, we never get to know about this stuff from you on your own show. That's why I ask these questions, because it's like,
no, ask away.
Message, like bam, 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 evidence. So it's really lovely to get to know the soul that is you, David. And I know that you come across really confidently on the camera and you're kind of like in control, but just that sensitivity and that really almost introversion, I really like. Actually seeing this other side of your character is really beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's lovely. Amazing. So Lisa's linking, and Lisa, you are a psychic as well. I absolutely know this, because the next question I was going to ask is, as someone who is a sensitive soul, who is probably more introverted, needs more recovery time, and I know you've said in the past in your podcast and other things that it's not the healing that drains you, it's not the spirit work that drains you, it's just the load, it's the activity. But how do you deal with that? How do you kind of prepare yourself if you know you're going to have a full day of readings, or you're going to be doing a big demonstration? And then how do you kind of like replenish yourself and stay connected and grounded as you're working? Would you be able to speak a little bit to that?
Yeah, I think it's still a learning process, to be honest, in that department.
You'll get days you get the spiritual hangover afterwards.
Yeah,
I don't talk to any more people.
Like today, so, oh God. I am learning to I don't think I've learned the lesson fully yet. I'm learning to pace myself, and that's only come through times where I haven't, and I've recognized the kind of the outcome of those times where I've had, I don't know, a demo on a Thursday, a Friday, private readings on a Saturday, another demo on a Sunday, and by Monday might as well be in a spirit world as well, because I feel dead. And so I'm learning. I'm looking at my calendar. I'm looking at, okay, I need a gap between that and that, and I need to be aware that if I've got something happening at a weekend, I don't want to burn myself out in the whole week before, so I can't do that private thing with my other half on that weekend. So I'm learning still. I'm getting better at it now, but at the very beginnings, because I was so excited about it, when you first go out there, you're excited and you want to do as much as you can. Yeah, okay, I'll do say yes to most things. But I've learned that no, I can't. It's not about this. About making sure that I also have a personal life, because I have a partner. We also have a life together. And if I'm always working, he's always working, we don't get that time together. And but also I'm just aware as well that I don't have to do everything. You do see a lot of mediums sometimes who they're everywhere and they're doing this, that, and the other. And I don't need to do that. Because I always say, this work is not about me. This is not about my face being everywhere. This is not about me having to do, I must do that big venue because that's famous. I must. If it doesn't sit right, if it doesn't fit right into my schedule, I don't need to do it, because there'll be other opportunities that spirit put in my path, and I'll do that instead. And so I'm aware of that as well. But how do I replenish? I should really get better at that as well, to be perfectly honest.
But we're having a bit of a session here, actually. Like, what do we need to work on?
Yeah, but my daily thing is, as tired as I might be, I'm at the gym 4 or 5 days a week, and that's my first thing I do in the morning. Before I do anything, I'm up in the morning, because that gets my I don't know, my energy shifted. It just shifts it a little bit. So if I'm a bit tired in the morning, by the time I come out of the gym, I feel a bit more energized, a bit more like, okay, I can start the day now because I've done this, I've got my system going or whatever. So I guess that's my thing that I will do. That's my morning thing, really, is get up, go to the gym, and then set up for the rest of the day. And yeah, and that's it, really.
I love that, really. And it's a very grounded approach. And I love this, it's a theme that kind of follows through everything that you do. Whether it's, talking about, if I get a can of beans, I'm going to say a can of beans. It's about having this really grounded, what mediums do is amazing. It is a gift.
Absolutely.
Healing. It is a real thing of beauty. But actually, like you say, you're a human being having spirit. You're a spiritual being of a human experience, and actually, you need to keep your feet on the ground.
Yeah,
stay balanced.
Definitely.
Beautiful. Thank you. My goodness, I'm going to give you a breather. Go and have a cup, because it sounds like you've had quite a day today. We're going to go to a little bit of advert, advertise all the good stuff that's coming on. So yeah, have a breath, David, before I launch into the second part and the other questions that I've got for you. We're going to go to a commercial break. Thank you, everybody.
All right.
Introducing the SPTV app, your digital spiritual guide, for an enlightening journey like no other. Immerse yourself in a world of audio and visual content crafted to inspire, educate, and entertain. Seek guidance with our card of the day, choosing up to 6 cards for personal insights. Enhance your daily life with our wellness section, featuring nutritious recipes, affirmations, and balanced living tips. Explore our spiritualism section for a deep understanding of the religion, its principles, and spiritual answers. Unravel the secrets of the clairs and broaden your spiritual horizon. Easily find local readers, therapists, centers, or churches with our comprehensive directory. Stay connected with live broadcasts, check our schedule, and get to know our insightful presenters. Delve into the meanings of angel numbers, crystals, and a comprehensive list of divination meanings. All of this and more, available for free on the SPTV app. Download now at sptv.uk/app and start your journey with your digital spiritual guide.
Help Spiritual Psychics TV grow our TikTok channel. Connect with us at SPTV UK. We're on a journey to reach our next milestone, and we need your help. Follow us today and support us going live. Imagine getting personalised readings, discovering your card of the day, and so much more. Don't miss out on the opportunity to explore new adventures with us. Follow, engage, and transform. Join our growing community at Spiritual Psychics TV with @SPTV UK on TikTok. Starting at 11 a.m. tomorrow, join Laura and Helen for a morning dedicated to upliftment, spiritual guidance, holistic wellness, and readings.
Tomorrow night from 8 p.m, join Clara for a night filled with mediumship teachings and readings, featuring special guests.
Hello, everybody. We have just been reading some of your amazing comments, amazing questions. We're going to try and get to as many as we can. Some offers of people wanting David to come over to Ireland to work. So it's been really nice. Thank you for all of your comments. And as we said, if we don't get to your comments, if you please don't think that we're ignoring you. We're absolutely not. We're just trying to get through the comments, trying to acknowledge whoever we can. Yeah. So thank you, everybody, for joining in. Mrs. MB with a really cute photo of a dog who's on YouTube. Yeah, David was talking about that earlier, that you do get messages for people before you come on to your live readings. They do they queue up? Do they kind of come in? Is there a format, or is it all
No,
internet?
it can be really odd sometimes. But sometimes if I'm driving to a dem, I'll start getting them come in, and I say to them, "Okay, I'm aware that you're there, but whilst I'm driving, I don't want to end up in a bush at the other side of the road. That distract me too much information. I'm just aware you're there. They might give me one thing. I go, okay, right, I've got it, and obviously I'll get there. They don't tend to bombard me, but it tends to be just the odd spirit person who goes, right, I want to speak first, or okay, we're going to set you off with your first link. So it can happen like that. It doesn't tend to be a lot though. Don't tend to be queuing. It's more just that one person that wants to get me going. I go, okay, once I got my first link, then the rest of it is fine, comes in afterwards. But yeah, I mean, the other day where was I going? I was driving to a dem again, and I looked up at the sky and I saw a cloud, and for whatever reason, it turned into the shape of a wishbone. And I thought, so then when I got to the venue and gave the information, a guy took it. It was connected to his friend that had passed. And I know it was a female that was giving it to me, but it's just things like that. It's just can be really random sometimes, just to set me off on that first link. But yeah.
Wow, amazing. I love that. Fantastic question. Thank you so much, Mrs. MB. That was really good. So I was thinking about kind of like getting a little bit deeper. We're going to crank it up a little bit and get a little bit deeper. And I'm going to ask a question around, has there ever been a message that's made you really question your belief, or made you question everything you had, your frameworks, your understanding? I know you love the 7 principles, and it's really important, but is there anything that's kind of made you go, oh, okay, I need to go and think about that, either from a message or from your spirit team?
Let me think. I mean, my guide team is, and this might just be a little thing actually. I think when you do this work, we do tend to question a lot. Are we good enough?
Okay.
Is my mediumship good enough? Is my delivery good enough? Should I be on the platform being all airy-fairy, or should I be more serious, or should I come across in a different way? And I mean, I still do that to myself, but I've got a lot better at it now. And I was questioning, am I too jovial on platform? Am I not supposed to be as funny? I get, but not in a purposeful way, if that makes sense. It's just my character. Do I need to dial that down? Are people going to like that? And so all that was going on in my head, and Spirit came through out of nowhere and just said, look, David, listen to this. You might not be the medium for everybody, but you're the medium for somebody. And that made me think and go, okay. So, and that helped me shed a little bit of this self-consciousness. So now when I go to a platform, I'm very much like, look, this is how I work. This is my process. I own what I do. I own who I am. And whether you like it or not, doesn't change my process. I can't change that because that is me. And I'm not going to change myself to fit into some spiritual box or some special spiritual club or clique. I'm not doing that. And so it's kind of allow me to take the pressure off myself and go, look, you just got to go and deliver what you deliver, how you deliver it, because someone is going to be able to take comfort from that. And some people want that levity. Some people don't want to be in a down or depressed kind of way. They want to leave a demonstration feeling uplifted. And so I have that in my mind now going, someone's going to like it. That person over there might, but I can't worry about that. And then also, when I first started, I had a number of different mediums talk to me about where I should pick my things up from. So, for example, one medium said to me, "Don't read any books." She said, "There's a load of books in that library in the church. I've not read a single one of them. She said, don't read any of them." Then I had another medium say, "Well, read what you can. Read this person, read that person," and I had all these things going on. I did read a few books.
Yeah.
But then I sat on my spirit team and I was scratching my head thinking, do you know what? I've read 3 books now about the same topic, and all 3 of them have given me a different answer. So what do I believe then? And one of my guides, Dolly, bless her, she came in and she said, David, end of the day, you've got to go with what you resonate with. And I've taken that, and I've got now. I said it to other people as well, and they say to me, "Well, that person said this to me about reincarnation. That person said something else about it." And I said, "Look, there really is no proof about that. To be honest, it's an opinion, but you have to go with what feels right to you. Otherwise, we end up driving ourselves mad with, okay, is that right? Or maybe I'm wrong, or maybe they're wrong, or maybe that person." Or so I stick with what Dolly said to me, which is, and that's what I hang on to, is that when I hear something from someone, I say, look, that either it resonates to me or it doesn't. If it doesn't, it's all right, but I have to go with what feels right to me. So those are the kind of lessons that I learned from my guide team, I would say.
Super. And you can't go far wrong if you keep spirit. You know, you can't go far wrong with that. Amazing.
Yeah.
You're so right. There is so much conflicting information out there. And we're going to talk about your spirit team. And I've heard about Dolly, and I want to know more about Dolly and the spirit kind of team and inspirers that work with you. But what advice would you give to somebody like yourself who was in the position that you were when you first kind of like, and I can imagine, you know, younger David going from this fledglings, you know, the development circle, kind of going on their fledgling path to kind of make that step into doing a public demonstration. What advice would you give them now? What advice would you give your younger self, knowing what you know now?
So the first thing I would say is ask why you want to do it. Ask yourself why. And I don't regret doing it, but I think some people might get into it for the wrong reasons. And I've heard of people that I've told us by a very respectable source was that they were told by some other people, oh, I've started developing to earn extra money. Not about healing people or really wanting to help people. It was, oh, I want to earn a bit of extra money on the side, so I'll just develop as a psychic or a medium. And that's obviously not the right reason to get into it. So I feel like you need to ask yourself, why do you want to do it? And it's not in a negative way. It's more going, okay, so what? No, why? Is it about the healing? Is it about helping? Is it about bringing that connection back to people from their loved ones? So really understand yourself, and if you're ready to do it as well. The other thing I would say is do your research, not necessarily through reading books, but look at who's out there, the great teachers that are out there, because everyone teaches differently.
Yes.
And as we say, going through school, you never have one teacher for the whole years you're in school. Your teachers will change. Will change to teach you different things at different levels that you're at. I don't know, for example, my German, for example, and I was quite good at it. But my first year German was very different to what my 5-year was, because I had different teachers on the way up to teach me, the more intermediate stuff. So do your research. And I'd also say, one thing that really knocked my confidence was people telling me I wasn't ready for this, or I have to do it this amount of years to do this. And I would say, don't allow people to put restrictions on you, because having a trainer background myself, people will learn at different paces in different ways and at different times. So I think it's important to understand your own learning pace and not to allow another mentor or a teacher to say to you, well, no, you've got to be doing this for 8 years before you do this, and that can really affect people's confidence. So don't allow people to do that to you. And the last thing I'll say is not to, and people probably heard this over and over again, but it's very true, because I learned about it myself, is not to compare yourself to the journey of other mediums alongside you. Because you will find, if you are in development circles, that your friend that sits next to you, who's been doing it the same amount of time, you might look at them and go, well, why are they that further ahead than me? Why are they given that opportunity and I'm not? And it can be very hard. It can be, you can take it personally. Like, why is that? Why has my teacher not chose me to do it, but they chose them to do it? We do it at the same time. But it could also be a sense of, am I not good enough? Am I not developing fast enough, the same as that person? But then look at it in the sense of, well, you don't necessarily know what that person's been through to get where they are. Because I always say, as much as I've not been doing this that long, a big part of my training was life experience and things that I'd gone through and things that I have under my belt in my toolbox, which people don't know about. And you don't know if that's the same case with the person sat next to you. They might have done more training before they even came into this church. They may have gone through things that you haven't, but that lends to their experience, and that experience lends itself to their mediumship. So everyone's in different places for different reasons. So it's just important to focus on where you are, what you're doing, and taking your time with it and not rushing it. And as many mediums said to me, David, take your foot off the gas. Because I was a bit, I've got to say, I was a bit, doing it when I first started. Obviously, I've learned now, but it is very much, take my advice and don't rush it. Take your foot off the gas, allow it to unfold as it's meant to unfold. And sometimes that can be hard because if you're like me, when I first figured out I could do it, I was like, oh my God, I've got to do more of it. I've got to learn more of this. I've got to learn more of that. I've got to do that. And I'm just like that naturally anyway. If I get something that I'm really good at, I grab hold of it and I go, full pelt with it. But it's not always the best way to do it. So just take my advice, people. Take your time with it, all right? It's not a race.
You heard it from Uncle David first. If you're new into it, I know it feels intoxicating, like you want to be giving messages to every man and their dog in Tesco's, but please don't.
No, I've never done that, I've got to say. But don't do that either. Know your boundaries, people.
No, absolutely. But it's really interesting, but I think some of it's down to, and I loved what you said actually, that people come to this at the right time. And for some people, they will start working in circle when they're 18 and they will go their entire life. And it's absolutely fine, because every time you put your bum in the seat and you work and you connect with spirit, you're learning and growing and developing, and stuff is happening. Even when you have what feels like a bad circle, and we've all had them. And you sat in an open circle and you think, well, I've not got anything, and everything no one can take. But you always learn something. You come out of it learning. And yet like you said, the person next to you just seems to be there for 2 weeks and they're already like flying and giving names and addresses and the rest of it. It's really important. It's the long journey, isn't it?
It is. Definitely, it's a journey. There's a word for it.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, Mrs. B's talking about development circle. And she had drums going off next to you and everything's, oh crikey. Okay, so she's had lots of things happening to her. So persevere with it, Mrs. MB on YouTube. Persevere with it. You just have to go with the flow and go with what is happening. And as David beautifully said, the spirit team know what they're doing. They've chosen you for a reason to work with you, because they know you've got development in your pathway ahead of you. If you choose to do that, you've got sovereignty if you choose to do it, and they will guide you through the process. So I would love to, because I just can't wait to hear about, can you talk to me about Dolly and who Dolly is and what you know about, and and how that relationship is unfolding? Because as soon as I heard that quote, about using a bit of discernment and and using your own intuition and your guidance and thinking, does that resonate with me? I thought, this is somebody who's very, very, very down to earth, got a lot of wisdom. Can you talk a little bit about Dolly? Who your spirit team are?
Absolutely. So Dolly is one of the first guides that I was made aware of, but without realizing it. So I'll try and shorten the story, but it's quite a nice story. So, but when I first started developing, going back to that time, that's when she made her appearance. So basically what happened was I had the thought to start developing, and so I did. But at the same time, I was feeling a little bit lost, and I wasn't really enjoying my job, and I thought, what do I do? I don't really know where to turn. So what I decided to do was to ring one of these psychic hotlines, right? Not necessarily, in my opinion, the best use of spiritual gifts, but anyway, that's another story. But I rang, I guess, what was her name? I think her name was June or something. I can't remember. Something like that. Anyway, she picked the phone, and lovely lady, she gave me lots of information, which was correct. And then she said, right, I've got a lady here called Dorothy. Dorothy, Dolly. And I was like, okay, not really sure. And she said, there's a name like Millie, Millicent, and that's a really uncommon name, right? So I would have thought that I would have known who that person is. And the only Dolly I know is my great aunt, who is still alive and kicking in Ireland. And so I knew it wasn't her. And she described her as being nimble fingered. She liked African violets, the flowers, and all this kind of. And I thought, I've got no clue. So anyhow, I asked my mother, and she went, "No, I don't know what that is. Your Aunt Dolly is still alive in Ireland. I don't want to kill her off." So I put it aside, and then about 2 months later, I went to a spiritual art demonstration at the church where I trained, and the guy came to me and he started drawing this face. But the more he drew it, the more I didn't recognize it, right?
Oh gosh, that's awkward.
I know. But again, he said, I've got a Dorothy here, or a Dolly. Okay. And he described how she looked and this thick black hair that she had and very down to earth. And I can't remember what else he said. So anyway, he gave the picture to me, and I took a photograph of it, sent to my mum and said, right, do you know where this is now? She went, no, I ain't got a clue. So, okay. So I rolled that thing up, I stuck it on a pile of papers, and the corner of poor Dolly was banished to the corner of the room. And then it was about 2 months after that, at work, a new lady had joined. And I was at my desk, and she decided to park herself opposite me as her new office space. And so I was getting on my work, and over that course of a couple of days, I heard people come up to her, and she started talking about spiritualist churches and how she wasn't a medium, but she went to spiritualist churches on a weekly basis. She's brought her kid up based on spiritualism or whatever else. She knows the 7 principles or whatever. And so I overheard this. I was earwigging. So I said to her, "Oh, I heard you go to spiritualist churches. I'm developing as a medium. If you ever want to chat about it, let's do." So very quickly we became very good friends, and there was one afternoon that we decided, let's book a meeting room. Let's go and have a chat. So we did at work. So I booked out in the work calendar, like we're having a official meeting.
I love this. And
so but I was planning to give her a reading, right? Because she wanted something happened in her family. She had a lot of losses. So, and I gave her a reading. Everything I said was spot on. And out of the blue, she went, "Oh yeah, my poor mum, Dolly." And I went, "Dolly?" She went, "Yeah." And she described her. And I went, "Oh my God." So
I've got something for you in my paperwork.
Yeah. So she went to get her phone from her locker, as did I. And I got my phone out with that drawing on it, and she got a photo of her mum out, put it side by side, and she went, is drawn Dolly.
Oh my gosh.
So at that point, all we thought was that Dolly, for whatever reason, had come through to me because she knew I was going to be connected to her daughter, right? That's all we knew at that point. And then both of us went to see another medium do a dem in a social club. And we sat there, and the medium, she's very, very good. She doesn't work anymore, bless her, but she's a great medium. And she basically called out my name. She went, "I'm Mr. Hale," and it's my granddad that was coming through. And then she went, "David Hale."
Wow.
And so I put my hand out, like, quite gingerly. I think that might be me. And she said, "You know, your guide is very close to you, so don't believe all this rubbish that, you know, everyone's got a Native American and a monk and this, that, and the other." She said, "Your guide is a little lady," and described her. And so me and my friend Caroline looked at each other. She said, "That's who your guide is." And she described Dolly.
Gosh.
So at that point, I think I was 2 years in by that point. And so then I look back at it, it makes sense that from that very first phone call that set me off on this journey, Dolly was trying to come through and say, I'm your guide. And then it wasn't until last year or year before, we had a conversation talking about names or whatever. And she went, and I didn't know Dolly's middle name. And Caroline went, yeah, she had an unusual name. It was Dolly Millicent. And I went, what? I said, are you joking me? She went, no, her middle name was Millicent. I said, well, that first psychic gave me a whole name. And I was like, just pushing her aside.
And she earned her money on that hotline that day.
Didn't she just? And so that's how it was confirmed that Dolly is one of my guides. And what I know about Dolly is she was the mother of 13 children. So Caroline, no, was one of 13. And they lived on a bus conductor's wage because her husband was a bus conductor. She was, again, very down to earth, very salt of the earth kind of woman, took no messing. But she looked after home. She looked after all of those children. She cooked from fresh every single day of the week. Just a very strong, tough, wise woman. And I feel that from her as well. So yeah, she died in 1990. So obviously it was a while ago, but it was just strange how, me and Caroline are still very, very good friends. And Caroline very much supports me on my journey. We go to see mediums together and that kind of thing. So like Dolly kind of knew that, she was going to come into my life. I was going to come into her life, and all those pieces kind of came together. So yeah, that's the story of Dolly.
Wow. Well, Dolly, you're doing a fantastic job guiding David. And what an amazing story to have that level of confirmation of who is working with you spiritually as well. So for most of us, it's very, wispy, and you get a little bit of this and a little bit of that until you really get that relationship going. But yeah, from the get-go, from literally
the start. Yeah.
Just introduced herself. She sounds like a no-nonsense lady. I love that.
Oh, yeah,
Thank you for introducing Dolly, because I kept hearing you talk about Dolly, and I thought, in my mind, it could have gone anyway. And I think it could be a lady in a rhinestone Stetson. It could have been. Not that she's in heaven; she's still with us. But yeah, it could have been anything. So Dolly, how wonderful! Thank you. Really beautiful to hear that story. And I don't think she's going to be watching tonight, but there's a lady who I hung out strategically around the water cooler at work, because I happened to overhear her talking about healing when she was on the phone to someone else in the lunchroom. I thought, I'm going to stalk out the water cooler or the coffee machine and see if I can get into a conversation and drop it in, because I work in an office where it kind of wasn't the norm. So, and it's lovely when you can find these people. But we used to book out the meeting room, the lunchroom upstairs, and chat about who was on and where we were going, and have you seen the good mediums? Got this set of tarot cards. Love it. Amazing. Super. We're getting loads and loads of comments through, and loads of people. Millicent is a really uncommon name. You're absolutely right, Mrs. MB, on YouTube talking about it's a really, really, really unusual name. So well done to that psychic hotline medium.
Yes.
Give her her dues. She was bang on.
She was in that case, absolutely.
She was bang on. So I suppose I just wanted to ask, lots of people loving your stories and loving to get to know more about you, David. This is lovely. I'm sure it won't be the first time.
No, it is. I'm very much enjoying it. Very much.
It's lovely. So I just wondered whether you've had any experience of having to navigate kind of finding your own faith, and kind of how you believe who we're kind of acting on behalf of. I know we talk about the spirit world and talk about our spirit guides, but what's your kind of view of faith, and what's your kind of view of, if we talk about this larger, call it universe, call it God, call it divine love, the power that we're working for in order to enable this to happen. What's your kind of view on that? Because I know that across the spiritualist and spiritual person spectrum, there's lots of different views. And I know I've spoken about this with Reverend Nick before, lots of different views. What's your personal take on it, and what's your kind of personal philosophy?
I think, for me, I've experienced a Catholic upbringing. I've been told about God, and if you're good, you go upstairs. If you're bad, you go downstairs. And that's what I heard as a kid, right? But I think I refer to it as the Great Spirit. that's just how I refer to it. And I just feel like, because of who I am, that I don't know. I think faith has a place, and you know, free to believe in whatever you want to believe in. But I feel, just from my experience, that's what I'm talking about here, is that I feel that certain religions are too restrictive, or people will hide behind a certain religion to spout whatever they want to spout, and therefore, because I've experienced it, and I'm talking about the Catholic faith here, right? And because I've had that, I kind of, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, I've got a resistance to it. And because, I've had people say to me, they've used, the least religious people in the world, but they've said to me, oh, it's not Adam and it's Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. Or people have said to me, no, God doesn't believe in gays. So I've had that, because I come from that community, right? So I've seen people who are, whether they're religious or not, use or hide behind that to go, oh, look, I'm a good person, but you're not, because God don't believe in gays, whatever other name they want to call me, right? But I think that I'll always have that base foundation of God within my life, because that's how I was brought up. So I think there's still a part of me, although I don't address the universe, whatever, as God, I always, whenever I do an opening prayer, I don't bring the Lord, God, or Jesus into it. For me, it's gracious and divine spirit. That's how I see it, if that makes sense. But my mind can't I can't compute a big man in the sky controlling things. That makes it sounds a bit odd, but it's just how in my head, how I rationalize it, because I know we're going to spirit worlds. We're all part of that. We come from that. We're going back to that. But I just term it as great spirit. That's just how I term it. Other people call the same thing God, and that's absolutely fine. But just in my mind, that's how I will always address it.
It's fascinating, and I think it's testament to kind of getting under the hood of mediumship, under the hood of spirituality, and exploring it as a science, as a really getting, and I think you're very much like that from what I'm getting to know about you, that it's not just enough to do it. You've got to understand why you're doing it, what's the motivation, what's the purpose, who we're doing it for. But it's such an important point. And I get this from some of the subjects that you delve into, and you think really deeply about. It's not just about the mechanics of how to get a link and develop a message. It's how you're evolving as a soul. It's how spirit helping you to evolve. Beautiful. Thank you so much for that. So I'm conscious of time, and we've got so many questions, and I apologize if we can't get to your questions and your comments. I know we're probably up kind of feeding back to them in the Facebook group, but getting so much support from people who are listening to your responses and kind of getting to know you a little bit more. Thank you for all of your questions, everyone that's come through. And when are you on next, David? When is your next show, so we can catch you doing what you do? And
next week, 22nd.
22nd. So
22nd, 6 p.m.
6 p.m. 22nd, you'll be able to watch David doing what he does best, working with spirit, delivering messages and guidance and healing and all of that lovely stuff, and demonstrating his beautiful gift of mediumship, which I know is pretty fast and furious, because you work at quite a rate of knots.
Sometimes.
When you're in your thing and you're in your flow.
When I'm in my zone, it's like,
It's amazing. It's amazing. So I suppose I just wanted to kind of start to wrap up. And I know, Alyssa, if you've just joined, if anyone is just joining now, please do go back and watch the beginning on catch up, because it's been a really, really lovely conversation. I've absolutely enjoyed talking to you and getting to know you a little bit more, and sharing some questions. And as if by magic, there's a lovely Phil from Wimbledon with the Wombles. Hello, Phil. Don't worry, you're never late. There's always perfect timing from spirit. You catch up. I was going to kind of ask about the message that you feel is really important for people at the moment. I know you do lots of readings. Is there a particular common theme that's coming up in terms of that greater philosophy for the collective, for people, for humanity, because, you know, it's tricky, it's tough, there's lots of things going on. Is there a particular kind of theme or cadence that you're noticing around some of your messages that you think would be really useful for anyone that's just happening to come in and catch this, that they probably might want to hear? Or what's your kind of thoughts of what guidance you would give right now?
At the minute, a lot of my addresses are based on or talking about grief and the grieving process, because I'm just hearing a lot at the minute about people becoming ill or people passing to spirit. Now, my mum included, bless her, she was recently diagnosed with breast cancer.
Oh, gosh,
And
sorry.
I think when we talk about grieving, our mind tends to go to, oh, they must have lost a loved one. When actually grieving can come in many forms and for many reasons. So whether it be, you know, someone's come to the end of a relationship, whether it be someone's lost their house, whether it be someone's lost a job, whether it be through health conditions. Like my mum, for example, she had to have a mastectomy. So she's grieving the loss of a part of her body. And she's now going through chemo, and she's going to grieve the loss of her hair and everything else, right? And I don't think we think of that enough. And I think that it's a human thing that, and I've certainly done it, where maybe I've, you know, come to the end of a relationship or something, I've lost something, and we look at someone else that's going through the loss of a loved one. We can tend to feel guilty for grieving our own loss, because we think, well, that loss isn't as big as that person losing someone. But no, we owe it to ourselves to honor our own grief and deal with it. And remember that no one else's grief is more important than ours, because losing a partner of 20 years is still very painful, whether you don't like them anymore or not, right? You spent 20 years with them. And so we mustn't feel any sense of guilt or shame for dealing with our grief, because grief is relative, and it's relative to your situation and to your circumstances. So yes, you may not have lost a loved one, you may have lost something else in your life which is important to you, and it's okay to face it. And it's also important, because I think when we don't face it, we keep pushing it aside because someone else is going through something bigger in our minds. All it does is lay stagnant and lay dormant until maybe a year later it raises its ugly head again, and then you've then got to go through the whole thing again. So it's important that we do honor ourselves by facing our grief and not thinking that our grief is any less than anybody else's. And I think that's helped people. And I've said to people as well, you know, grief takes its time. I think we have so much pressure these days because everything else that's going on. We have people that say, well, you know, you shouldn't be over it yet or whatever. And you kind of want to slap them, don't you? And I say to people, my thing is, I say to them, it's okay to grieve, but just as long as you're good to yourself whilst you're doing it. And what I mean by that is that a lot of the time, and it's understandable if you're going through the raw throes of grief, is that people will stop eating. Yes. They might start smoking. They've never smoked a cigarette in their life. They start smoking. They start drinking. They won't get out of bed. They won't even wash themselves or dress themselves. They keep the curtains closed. And we need to do the opposite of that to remain in our strength to get through that time. So get up, have your breakfast as much as you don't want to eat it. Now, wash your face, put some clothes on, you know, eat properly, get your sleep when you can get your sleep. Because I know, and we know, Ashley, that the spirit world would never, ever want us to neglect ourselves. If anything, they want us to get up and get on with it as tough as it may be. But they're looking at us going, like, come on, love, get up, you know, sort it out, get on with it. Because we know they're in a place of peace and contentment. They're no longer in a place where their physical ailments are restricting them. So they'd never want us to restrict ourselves. They don't want us to sit in that energy of grief for the rest of our life. And of course, some people will grieve for their loved ones for the rest of their life, but it needs to be in a different form. And so we can start the healing process. And I think it's also important to say that healing does not mean forgetting. And I think when you say to someone, I've not started healing yet, I think people are afraid to, because they think if I start healing or feeling healed, Does that mean I'm leaving them behind, forgetting them? Absolutely not. Healing is vital for us to live this life on this, the rest of our life on this planet, with some kind of sense of happiness, some kind of sense of peace, because that's what we need. If you're here for another 30, 40, 50 years, you can't live those years in misery and distress. You can't. And your spirit family would not want you to do that. And it sometimes, yes, it's hard to get, to come to terms with that, because we miss our people so much. But we have to we're here for a purpose, I always say. Now, and that purpose is to live your life in whatever way you need to live it, or what things you need to do within that time frame. But you can only do those things when we start to go, right, I need to heal from this. I need to move forward. And I say move forward instead of moving on. Just another thing I'll say actually quickly here is that another thing my spirit team taught me is, I said to them a while ago, how do you reconcile that? How do you tell someone it's okay to move on when they've lost someone? And they said, easy, change the word from on to forward. Because when we say moving on has that connotation of we're leaving that old thing behind, like an old relationship no longer want to be in. Been there, done that, want a t-shirt, next. You don't need to go there again. But with spirit, we don't forget them, we don't leave them, but instead we move forward, taking them with us. So anyone listening, if anyone ever says to you, I've not moved on yet, you say, actually, no, I haven't. But what I have done is I've moved forward, because I know when I'm doing that, I'm taking them with me. So that's how spirit put that through to me. So that's what I say to everybody. It's okay to move forward, because whilst you're doing those things, going on that holiday, whatever else, they'll be there with you, free of charge, whilst you're paying for the hotel, the flights, whatever else. They'll be there free of charge, having a good time with you. So again, we must do those things, because if we're not doing them, spirit don't do them with us, do they? If we're sitting on our couch doing nothing, what's spirit doing? Watching us sit on our couch? Nah, it's boring. Come on, let's do these things we need to do. So that's
really, it's
I
really
guess
important.
what I want to leave you with.
It's really, and lots of people are resonating with that. So you have had some beautiful philosophy from David, and a message, and it's a message for all of us. And you're right that grief isn't, there's many forms of grief, there's many forms of loss. I think Helen Kubler-Ross talks about many different types of grief. And it's really beautiful that you brought in the healing. So I know that healing is so important to you as well, on that kind of vibration, and all messages and all mediumship are healing. But working with people who are recovering from really serious health conditions that have to go through a period of readjustment and grief, as well as the body adjusting, psychically we have to readjust as well. So and if anyone is watching who is in active grief, where you feel that you're having a really difficult time, please do reach out. Please don't feel like there are so many amazing support organizations, and if you're a member of a spiritualist church, I'm sure you probably might have some people. You'll be in the right place. If you're as part of a spiritual community, you'll be in the right place. You'll be with people who are talking the language of love, eternal life, healing, being able to walk with you through grief. So please do reach out. And it's such an important point from David, that it is not moving on, it's just moving forward with our lives. And we hear that every Sunday at spiritualist churches, messages from loved ones that come through and say, I know you still love me and I still love you, but you need to do the thing. You need to do the thing.
Yes.
Yes, it was beautiful. Oh my goodness. Do you know what? I've absolutely loved it. I've really enjoyed
me
it
too.
this
Thank
evening.
you.
Really enjoyed it. So thank you for being my guest. Thank you for everyone watching. All of David's amazing circle online that have watched normally on a Tuesday and have come and watch the interview this evening. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, guys. Yeah,
really
definitely.
And Paul, come back soon. We miss you, and I hope I've done a good job for you, Paul. Please let me know. Send me a message. Hopefully you've been watching. Beautiful. So thank you everyone for watching. So next, what we've got on tomorrow is we've got the lovely Helen and Laura, who are going to be doing some wellness, spirituality, psychic art. That's going to be a really lovely chat. And then we've got Clara in the evening doing her thing. So if you are developing in circle, you're developing your mediumship, she's the font of all knowledge. She's got the best laugh. on anyone on SPTV, and I stand by that. She's got such an amazing sense of humor and infectious energy around developing mediumship. She's passionate about it. Please do come and watch that tomorrow night. And then we've got Minty on Sunday starting his development course. So if you haven't already booked onto that, please do come and book onto that, because it's going to be amazing. If you've seen Minty work, you know doesn't pull his punches. He says it as it is, and he's got a really lovely way of working. So please do come and learn with Minty for the development course. Thank you, everybody. And thank you so much, David. It's been an absolute pleasure. And we'll see you on Tuesday. Brilliant. Thank you, everybody.